Starting us off at number 10 is an alien demon. This clip first surfaced back in 2019 after a woman named Vivian Gomez was checking her security camera footage one morning. In this clip I'm about to show you, there is a creepy, pale, gaunt looking creature who walks, or whatever you want to call it, across her driveway, and I mean, I don't blame her for being freaked out. So as you can see, there is a very weird little humanoid looking creature that would for sure make me question my sanity if it popped up on my security footage. Now of course, when it was posted, there were quite a few people that pointed out how much this creepy creature resembles Dobby the elf from Harry Potter, and I mean honestly, I kind of do see that. Also, that funky little chicken dance thing that it's doing is definitely not the most intimidating thing a demon could do. But the funny Dobby point aside, it's still a super freaky video that definitely makes me feel all kinds of weirded out. I mean, look at that thing. It doesn't look human to me, that's for sure. Plus, all we are seeing is the back. Who knows what its face looks like, let alone what it could be capable of. Let's just hope that whatever it is, it's not looking to hurt us. Next up at number 9, a river monster. Now this video starts off a little differently from the rest on this list, but I still thought it was weird enough to add to the list for you guys. As you can see, there are two people at the top of a hill with a stretcher, and a group of people in what appear to be hazmat suits a little bit down a ledge from them trying to pick something up. Now, a group of people wearing hazmat suits in the middle of the day by the river is definitely a little unusual to begin with, but what's even stranger than that is what they appear to be grabbing. If you take a look at the clip, it looks like whatever they're grabbing is some kind of strange creature, potentially even a demonic one. Some people online said they thought it looked like a mermaid, which, I mean, is definitely one theory. I don't know, you guys, let me know in the comments what you think this creature could be. Coming in at number 8, a skeleton demon. Demons come in all shapes and sizes, but until today I had never really thought about one that looked like a skeleton. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just me. And hey, maybe it's not a demon, but then you can tell me what this creature might be. As you can see in the clip here, it looks like this came from some security footage, and right there, as you can see, is a creepy demonic alien skeleton thingy that will probably be etched into my brain for many days to come. But then something spooks it and it disappears behind a bush, and that's it. That's all we see of this terrifying creature. Now, some people online think this one could be a hoax, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Could that be a freaky skeleton demon coming to haunt you in your sleep? I sure as hell hope not. Next up at number 7, a demon possession. Now, don't get me wrong, I love ooky spooky content as much as the next person, but that doesn't mean I'm looking to get mixed up with demons or hoping to catch one on a ghost hunt. These guys, however, posted a video of their ghost hunt a little over a year ago to YouTube entitled "The Scariest Video You Will Ever Watch." Now, that's a pretty bold statement considering what is on the internet these days, but to be fair, there is a pretty freaky moment where it looks like one of the guys gets possessed. So as we can see, the lights are flickering, you know, classic demon stuff, and so they head into the room to investigate. But the creepy part comes when the guy holding the camera turns back and sees his friend with completely jet black eyes. I mean, if that were me in a haunted house with the lights flickering like that, I would definitely be running as far away as I could. But hey, to each their own. However, maybe the strangest part is that literally seconds later, it's gone and he's back to normal. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Was he being possessed by an evil demon? Coming in at number 6, a creepy crawly. This next one was posted to the YouTube channel Kisa Weba, and it's definitely what my nightmares are made of. All demons are creepy, but there is definitely something about one that's crawling on the ground that adds an extra layer of shivers down my spine. As you can see in the clip, this demon is crawling across the pavement, full horror movie style on their hands, and behind them it looks like there is this trail of like demon ghostness falling behind them, or maybe that's just the shape of the demon. I'm not totally sure. Either way, it is an incredibly demon looking thing to me, but whatever it is, I would 100% not want to run into this on my nighttime walk. that is for sure. Next up at number 5, a pale creature. This next clip is creepy to say the least. It was first posted to Twitter by the username ParanormalityM, and it immediately had just about the entire internet freaked out. In this clip I'm gonna show you here, there is an almost ghoulishly white creature that is probably one of the most indescribable things I've ever laid eyes on. I mean, you take a look for yourself and see, right? Look at that thing. Do you get what I mean? Like, actually, what is that creature? Some think it could have been some kind of paranormal sighting, while others joked it kind of looked like Gollum, which, truth be told, I can kind of get behind. However, the resemblance to Gollum or not doesn't make this ghoulish creature any less freaky, or any less possible of being a demon capable of possessing you and ruining your entire life. Coming in at number 4, Voldemort Demon. This next video was posted by an account called Supernatural back in 2020, and before I get into it, let me just start off by saying that the first thought I had about this demon was that it looked like Voldemort. That or Emperor Palpatine maybe, both of whom I would prefer to whatever the hell is in this clip. So as you can see, as the camera starts coming into focus, a terrifying dark creature is standing at the very back of the hallway staring right at the camera. Now, something about the fact that it doesn't move almost makes it scarier, like I am just waiting for something super bad to happen. However, whoever was filming this apparently likes to live on the edge, as it looks like they actually start getting closer to this evil cloaked demon. But then, completely out of nowhere, this Voldemort demon straight up falls away and disappears. I mean, look at that. Like, what is happening there? If there is one thing that is scarier than seeing a demon, it's seeing that demon disappear and having no sweet clue where the hell it went. Coming in at number 3, Monster Under the Bed. Thanks to horror movies, there are many people out there who are nervous to sleep with their toes outside of the covers on the off chance that a demon will come and grab them in the night. And listen, I'm not saying it makes complete sense, but I'm also saying that I might be one of those people. Now, while I'm not 100% sure, it seems like this might be footage of someone that's being possessed by a demon. That or it's a humanoid kind of creature, but either way, it's spooky and not anything I would ever want to come into contact with. In the clip here, you'll notice it starts on the bed, then is abruptly seen standing with its back to the camera before the clip jumps, and all of a sudden, this demon is shaking the bed by the bars like a maniac. This clip continues on to show the ghoulish white figure standing in the corners or contorted around the bed until maybe the creepiest part, when this demon looks as if it starts eating its own flesh? Listen, tell me what you see here. To me, this looks like a freaky demon possession that would 100% ruin my sleep. And if the demons that may or may not live under my bed are anything like this, then, well, let's just hope they leave me alone. Coming in at number 2, the floating girl. This next video was posted online back in 2017. However, according to the timestamp on the video itself, it looks like it was taken back in 1997. This section of the clip I'm gonna show you starts off with a woman who I'm going to guess is the priest or something, cracking what looks like a black egg into a bowl. I mean, already I'm confused, but that is quickly far less interesting as the possessed girl abruptly sits up and all you see are her piercing hollow black eyes. She drinks the egg concoction and then, as quickly as she sat up, she throws her body back down into the bed. As you can see, things keep getting crazier. Her seemingly hollowed out eyes shoot back open, and the next thing you know, she's floating off the bed. From there, her body starts slowly lowering down again until she grabs the camera and it goes blank. I mean, you guys are looking at the same thing as me here, and I have to admit that is some pretty freaky footage. And last up in our number 1 spot today, Possessed by the Devil. Not to be dramatic or anything, but this last clip I'm about to show you is utterly horrifying. I mean, honestly, I think that this clip is going to be seared into my mind for eternity, which is super fun. Like, just watch the clip here. Pardon me, the contorted face and body, the blood all over his mouth, and what was that evil laugh noise he was making? Also, can we talk about the ribs that may as well have been cracked open at the very end there? If there was ever a video to prove the existence of a demon possession, I would definitely put this video at the top of my list. That's all I'm saying, because really, I can't think of many other explanations for what I just saw.
Number 10. SS Watertown. In December 1924, James Courtney and Michael Meehan were crew members on the SS Watertown. They were cleaning a cargo tank of the oil tanker, and they were overcome by gas fumes, which resulted in both of their deaths. Due to this, the crew buried them at sea, but to their astonishment, the ghostly faces of the soldiers appeared in the water the next day. Yeah, like in the waves. Later on, many other crew members reported seeing the faces as well. The faces were so visible that the captain of the ship ordered them to take a picture of them to have for proof, you know, so people didn't think that they were crazy. And this was smart, because if someone told me they saw faces of two dead men in the water, I would probably never talk to them again and think that they were cuckoo. Although, in the picture, you can clearly see two faces, which is just plain creepy. When the SS Watertown returned to land, the negative was even checked for fakery and proclaimed genuine. So yeah, just two faces chilling in the waves. No big deal. Number 9. The Nurse. This photo was taken in an abandoned tuberculosis hospital in Louisville, Kentucky called Waverly Hills Sanatorium in 2006. As you can imagine, many people passed away here, and it's rumored to be filled with paranormal activity. In recent years, it has become one of America's most popular destinations for ghost hunters. This image depicts a woman just standing to the right side, but when the photo was taken, no one was there. It was a ghost. It has been agreed among the paranormal community that the photo depicts Mary Lee, a nurse who took her own life in the hospital. The story goes this poor woman was impregnated by a doctor who worked in the hospital, but later wanted nothing to do with her. Nowadays, she wanders the halls of the hospital and interacts with ghost hunters. Number 8. Tulip Staircase. Reverend Ralph Hardy, a retired clergyman from White Rock, British Columbia, took this famous photograph in 1966. Originally, he only wanted to take a picture of the elegant tulip staircase in the Queen's House section of the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, England. And I mean, I don't blame him. They're pretty. But upon development, the photo revealed a shrouded figure climbing the stairs. It's strange and unsettling, and Ralph said there was no one else in the frame when he took it. Experts who examined the original negative concluded that it had not been tampered with. The vicinity of the staircase is rumored to be haunted, and unexplained footsteps have often been heard there, so it's most likely something supernatural who just wanted their photo taken. Number 7. The Brown Lady. The Brown Lady of Rainham Hall is a ghost that reportedly haunts Rainham Hall in Norfolk, England. It became one of the most famous hauntings in the United Kingdom when photographers from Country Life magazine claimed to have captured its image. According to the legend, the Brown Lady is the ghost of Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Robert Walpole, generally regarded as the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. She was the second wife of Charles Townshend, 2nd Viscount Townshend, who was notorious for his violent temper. The story goes that when Charles discovered that his wife had committed adultery with Lord Wharton, he punished her by locking her in her rooms in the family home, Rainham Hall. According to Mary Wortley Montagu, Dorothy was in fact entrapped by the Countess of Wharton. She invited Dorothy over to stay for a few days, knowing that her husband would never allow her to leave, not even to see her children. She remained at the Rainham Hall until her death in 1726 from smallpox. This is just an extremely sad story, and I can't imagine her pain. The first sighting of the Brown Lady was in 1835, and the photograph was taken in 1936. Number 6. Falling through the ceiling. Back in the 1950s, the Cooper family from Texas moved into their new house. Once there, they took a family photo, which seems normal, right? Well, not for them. When the picture was developed, the image of a body falling from the ceiling was clearly visible. To be clear, no one fell from the ceiling when they took the photo, so what happened? As further investigation on the story has brought no plausible explanation, there exist many speculations, including one that argues that the shadow is the ghost of the previous owner of the house. But my question is, why is he falling from the ceiling, and why did he have to ruin that beautiful family photo? I remember seeing this photo on the internet when I was probably too young to see it, and after all these years, this image still gives me chills. Ugh. Number 5. backseat ghost. On March 22nd, 1959, Mabel Chinnery and her husband drove to the graveyard in which her mother had been buried. Her mother had died a week previously, and they were going to take photos of her grave, and they did. As Mabel returned to the car, she decided to use her last remaining shot to take a candid picture of her husband waiting in the vehicle on the passenger's side. Nothing was out of the ordinary, it was just a random photo, but when the pictures were developed, one of Mabel's friends pointed out that someone, believed to be her mother, appeared to be behind her husband in the back seat of the car. Now, was the figure her mother or some other spirit? Who knows? I mean, they were in a graveyard, it could have been anyone or anything. The photograph itself wasn't seen in the United States until the story got a whole page in the Sunday newspaper. Mabel stated that the spot where the unexpected figure appeared in the back of the car is where her mother always sat when they went for drives, so it makes sense that it could be her. An unnamed photo expert is quoted as saying, "The lady in the back can't be the result of a double exposure. If it were, the door's upright wouldn't block off part of her face, and she can't be a reflection in the window either." So maybe it really is Mabel's mother. Number 4. Wem Ghost. On November 19, 1995, Wem Town Hall burned to the ground in Wem, Shropshire, located in England. During the fire, Tony O'Rahilly, a sewage farm worker who was also an amateur photographer, was originally stopped by police from approaching the burning building. He took a picture of the blaze from across the street with a 200mm lens. It appeared to depict the image of a young girl in the doorway of the burning building. Now, to be clear, there were no injuries or fatalities from the fire. This was not a human. Locals who saw the photo believed it was the ghost of Jane Churm, a young girl who was accused in 1677 of starting a fire in the same town. The image of the girl in the doorway of the burning building was not noticed by Tony, the photographer, or the onlookers. It only appeared after the photo had been developed. I mean, if she was accused of starting a fire and then she popped back up in an area where another fire started, it seems like it really could be Jane. Number 3. The Specter of Newby Church. The Specter of Newby Church is the name given to a figure in the photograph taken in the Church of Christ the Consoler on the grounds of Newby Hall in North Yorkshire, United Kingdom. The image was taken in 1963 by the Reverend Kenneth F. Lord. As the figure appears to resemble a human, much speculation has been had regarding what type of person might be in the image. Most speculation by believers has concluded that it resembles a 16th century monk with a white shroud over his face, possibly to mask leprosy or another disfigurement. Others believe it looks like a plague doctor from the 16th and 17th centuries. Initial claims suggest that the figure would measure at 9 feet tall, but its feet are not visible, so it could easily be standing on a box, giving the impression of height. Some people thought the photo was due to double exposure, but photographic experts have concluded that the image is not the result of double exposure. So what was it, and why was it in a church? No one truly knows, but it's extremely frightening. What does it look like to you? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. Mystery Guest. On January 22nd, 1985, the Coventry Freeman organization and their guests stood in prayer during a dinner event. All the guests are still, and as it was a dark room, the photographer probably thought it would be the perfect time to allow for a longer than usual exposure to get enough light into the picture. Makes sense. Now, nothing was out of the ordinary at the time, but as people started to see the print of the picture, a mystery surfaced. Who was the robed figure standing near the end of one of the tables? No one had dressed up for the event, and no one remembers anyone standing there as they stood for prayer. The figure also seems to be taking part in the prayer, head slightly bowed, hands clasped in front. St. Mary's Coventry, Warwickshire is where the event was hosted. It has many legends of ghosts and paranormal activity, but I wonder why this being decided to join in prayer. It just gives me bad vibes, like evil lurks within it. And coming in at number 1 is the Young Boy. One of the most famous haunted houses in the United States is the Dutch Colonial House at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. The haunting stems from the night of November 13th, 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald Defoe ended the lives of all 6 members of his family. He was then arrested, convicted, and given 6 concurrent life sentences. In December of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, moved into the house and claimed that spooky things were happening. For example, George would wake up at 3:15 every morning, which was the approximate time that Ronald committed his crimes. Kathy said she would feel a ghostly presence and be embraced by it. All of this and more caused the family to flee in fear after only staying in the house for 28 days, and honestly, I don't blame them. Due to this, demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the house and set up time-lapse infrared cameras and caught this photo. The picture wasn't made public until 3 years later when George Lutz appeared on the Merv Griffith Show in 1979. Believers of the haunting think that the picture is the ghost of the youngest Defoe son, John Matthew, who was 9 at the time. Others believed it's a staged photo, but despite its controversy, this picture is one of the most frightening images from the Amityville Horror. Number 10. Royal Air Force Squadron. This photo, taken in 1919, was first published in 1975 by Sir Victor Goddard, a retired RFA officer. The photo is a group portrait of Victor's squadron, which had served in World War I at the HMS Daedalus training facility. This isn't a normal photo though, as an extra ghostly face appears in the photo. In the back of the airman positioned on the top row, fourth from the left, you can clearly see the face of another man. It's said to be the face of Freddie Jackson, an air mechanic who had accidentally died from an airplane propeller 2 days earlier. And let me just mention, his funeral had taken place on the day this photograph was taken. Members of the squadron easily recognized the face as Freddie's. I mean, it was his funeral, he just wanted to be a part of the photo. It has also been suggested that Freddie, unaware of his death, decided to show up for the group photo, which is just sad. Number 9. Combremere Abbey Library. In 1891, Cybele Corbett took a photo of the Combremere Abbey Library in Cheshire, England. Cybele was an amateur photographer who allegedly set up her camera and took this hour-long exposure while at the funeral of her brother-in-law, Lord Combremere, was taking place 4 miles from the home. When the plate was developed, the transparent image of a man sitting in one of the library chairs was noticed. Many of the staff said the image looked like the late second Viscount, and the apparition happened to be sitting in Lord Combremere's favorite chair. So, you know, it's obviously him. It's thought by some that a servant might have come into the room and sat briefly in the chair, thus creating the image, but this idea was refuted by members of Lord Combremere's household. Lord Combremere's father, the first Viscount, had been involved in a mysterious incident himself years earlier while serving as governor of Barbados when he had the Chase vault opened and carefully examined in search of an explanation for the moving coffins there. Seems like him and his father have both had some paranormal experiences, both in life and death. Number 8. The Watcher of Corroboree Rock. The rock formation near Alice Springs, Australia, known as Corroboree Rock, is made of dolomite that was formed more than 800 million years ago, and it's considered a sacred site by the Arrernte Aboriginal people. With that much history behind it and that much importance assigned to it, it makes sense that there's someone or something that looks over it. That's why the spirit is called the Watcher of Corroboree Rock. Now, no one really knows exactly who or what it is, but one photo of it dates back to the 1950s. In either 1956 or 1959, reports vary, a minister from Adelaide snapped the photo during a visit to the rock formation, and it's been puzzling people ever since. According to the minister, Reverend R.S. Lance, there was no one around when the photograph was taken, however, but when he developed it, the ghostly figure now seen in the image appeared. It's kinda nice to know that there's something taking care and watching over that area, no? Number 7. Leeds General Infirmary. Now, why wouldn't there be a creepy ghost photo taken in a hospital? With many patients' lives ending and beginning there, those places are full of spirits. Now, this photo isn't an extremely well-known ghost photo, but it's still creepy nonetheless. This photo was taken at Leeds General Infirmary by Andrew Milburn. The photo shows what appears to be a ghost nurse or patient fleeing into a room in a hospital corridor. Andrew took the photo to show his girlfriend where he was in the hospital and did not mean to capture a ghost. He didn't know this ghost was in the photo until he reviewed it more closely. Andrew had always been skeptical about ghosts, but seeing this figure changed his mind, and honestly, that would change my mind too. Number 6. Whaley House. Known worldwide as the most haunted house in America, the Whaley House is recognized for its historical significance in Old Town San Diego. They do haunted tours on the property, and this family went on a tour and got their photo taken. In the photo, you can see the brown outline of someone or something in between the two adults. Now, there are multiple people this could be. One of the most infamous ghosts in San Diego is the spirit of Yankee Jim Robinson. Yankee Jim was hanged in the house in 1852 after being convicted of stealing horses. Thomas Whaley himself, who owned and lived in the house with his family's years later, had said they could hear heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs. Visitors have reported cold spots and the feeling of their chest and throat tightening while in the home. Others claim to have seen Yankee Jim too, and apparition that appears and disappears when you get close. This ghost in the photo could also be Thomas Whaley himself. Today, and for many years, visitors of the house have reported seeing Thomas. One guest waved to a man she said she saw standing in the parlor. No one else could see the man, but when asked what he looked like, she described a man wearing period clothing that resembled Thomas. Adults too have seen him wearing a frock coat and pantaloons standing on the second-story landing, and others have seen his wife, Anna, usually floating about in the garden or in the downstairs room. Her ghost, which appears white and billowy, seems to just drift about and then disappears. So with so much ghost activity in that house, I am sure it's one of those spirits. Number 5. Tantallon Castle. Tantallon Castle dates back to the 14th century, stands on a remote headland near North Berwick, and was badly damaged in an attack by Oliver Cromwell's forces in 1651. A photo taken there shows a ghostly figure. The photo, taken by Christopher Anachin in 2009, still remains an unsolved mystery. It's a photo of a man in what appears to be 16th century clothes. It's known that no mannequins or cost guides are used within the castle, and experts have confirmed through analysis that there is no digital alterations at play. Even skeptics have been left baffled by the image after tests confirmed no technological trickery is at play. Psychologist Professor Richard Wiseman from the University of Hertfordshire, who studied the picture, said the figure appears to be in a period costume, but we know 100% that the Tantallon Castle is not the sort of place that has mannequins or costume guides. Seems like an old spirit just wanted to take a look outside. Number 4. Nottingham Galleries of Justice. One of the best ghostly sightings caught on film is this spooky black figure photographed by Simon Brown, who is a qualified parapsychologist. He was spending the day at the old Galleries of Justice with his brother and was simply taking photographs of the building. Although Simon says he didn't notice anything while taking the images, when he downloaded them onto his computer, he noticed what appeared to be a black figure shadow that seemed to have walked through a brick wall. Staff at the galleries have corroborated Simon's story, saying that they too have seen similar figures and have experienced similar paranormal encounters, but have not yet been able to capture anything on film. They've seen ghostly apparitions, dealt with poltergeist activity, and had doors slam on their own. Simon also mentioned when discussing the figure that it appeared to be in turn-of-the-century prisoner dress, dragging a leg behind him as though he was in chains. All I can say is creepy. Number 3. New home. Buying a new house is a fun and exciting time. But what if you bought a house that you didn't know was haunted? Seems like that's what happened to Michelle midwinter. Michelle had bought a new house in England and she took a photo of it to send to her friends and family. She'd gone outside, snapped a photo, and returned to the inside of the house when she noticed a face staring back at her in the bottom right window of the house. I'm sorry, when you zoom in, you can clearly see a nose, eyes, and shoulders, and the face of a man staring back at you. Now, Michelle didn't pack up her bags and leave right away, which I'll never understand. Instead, she posted the image online and was eventually contacted by a historian local in her area who believed that the apparition in the image could have been a man known as Old Man Kent, who was thought to be a suspect in a death back in 1860. Initially, Michelle dismissed the image as nothing more than reflections and refractions of light from the flowers outside her window, but following further paranormal sightings and activity within the house, such as cold spots and lights flickering, it seems like Michelle is now a believer. I can't believe having to live in a house like that. Number 2. Bedroom ghost. In 2005, a teenage girl had just gotten her first digital camera. She was messing around, experimenting with the features, and taking photos of her friend Tommy. The two photos were taken seconds apart. The first was taken with flash and the second was taken without. When taking the photo, the photographer and her friend were the only people in the room at the time, but there's clearly another person in the photo on the right. It looks like an older person wearing glasses, and I mean there's clearly someone there. The girl said that unusual things were always happening in her family's house as there were noises and things moved. Maybe it was the spirit who was doing all this and decided to reveal themselves. If I took a photo of a ghost in my bedroom though, I would never sleep there again. And coming in at number 1 is the ghost in the water. In 2014, Kim Davidson was swimming in a lake with a friend and their combined 3 children. They went to Murphy's Hole in Lochar River in Queensland, Australia. While there, they took a photograph. Normal, right? But when the photograph came out, there was a ghostly figure of a girl behind the group who looked like she'd been leering behind the family. They said that there was nothing in between them when the photo was taken, and on close examining the image, they realized it was a white face with dark eyes and two horns on either side of the head. Its fingers are on Kim's shoulder and on the small girl's right arm. Kim posted it on Facebook, and upon seeing the image, many comments were made, some saying that the two horns looked like two ponytails or buns. A fellow user shared the story of Doreen O'Sullivan, a girl who accidentally drowned in the same creek in the same spot in 1913. Her obituary was found in the Brisbane Courier, dated the 22nd of November 1913. The notice reads that Doreen O'Sullivan, aged 13 years, the oldest daughter of Mr. James O'Sullivan, was accidentally drowned whilst bathing in the Lockyer Creek on Friday afternoon. Nearly an hour elapsed before the body was recovered. Now, the spot, which has always been considered dangerous, is known as Murphy's Hole and is over 20 feet deep. Upon reading this, Kim recollected that they had experienced strange things that day while they were swimming in water. She felt someone's presence behind her, but she ignored it. Twice, someone in the water even grabbed her elder daughter's leg. This made Kim believe in the presence of a spirit in the water. By looking at the picture, she was convinced that the unknown face was that of Doreen. Kim got two paranormal experts to check out the photo, and after investigating the photograph carefully, they concluded that the shape of the image was that of a child.
And we're starting off with this photograph of the types of cells that were used to house supposed witches during the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials were a very dark and infamous chapter in American history that unfolded in the late 17th century. Taking place in Salem, Massachusetts, the trials were fueled by a climate of fear, superstition, and religious fervor. Accusations of witchcraft spread like wildfire, just tearing apart families and communities. It all began when a group of young girls claimed to be afflicted by strange ailments and started pointing fingers at certain individuals as the source of their suffering, all of which were kind of outcasts in the community. And these accusations quickly snowballed. It led to mass hysteria and just a frenzy of trials. The accused were subjected to flawed and biased legal proceedings. Evidence and confessions were obtained under duress and were deemed admissible, and 19 innocent people were ultimately convicted and put to death. Historical documents and illustrations related to the Salem witch trials were often concealed by authorities, seeking to downplay the events and distance themselves from the mass hysteria that was going on at the time. At number 9, we have Pope Pius XII's secret wartime documents. These documents, which were previously hidden within the Vatican's secret archives, were released in 2020, and they reveal some pretty intriguing stuff about the Vatican during World War II and the Pope's relationship with the leader of the Third Reich. These documents, spanning loads of pages, give us a peek behind the curtain, if you will, of Pope Pius's actions during one of the darkest times in history. People were hoping for some concrete answers about the Pope's stance during this time, but it turns out it's a bit of a mixed bag. Apparently there's no definitive evidence in these documents that he actively denounced the actions of the Third Reich, or was at least doing enough to try and help the people. And as it turns out, he even had contact with Mr. H himself. There is also some evidence, of course, he was working behind the scenes to try and aid in the war effort, but historians and scholars are having just a field day with this treasure trove of information, trying to uncover the truth about the Vatican's role in those tumultuous times. At number 8, we have Anneliese Michel. Most of you have probably seen this image before. It's incredibly harrowing, really sticks with you. No amount of horror movie makeup can replicate just how disturbing the image of this poor woman is. The case of Anneliese is a haunting and very tragic tale that unfolded in the 1970s. Anneliese, a young German woman, experienced a series of alarming physical and psychological symptoms that were eventually attributed to demonic possession. Convinced that she was possessed by demons, Anneliese and her family sought help from both medical professionals and the Catholic Church. Unfortunately, her pleas for assistance were met with a blend of misguided religious fervor and a lack of appropriate medical intervention. Annalise's condition just deteriorated rapidly, and she endured months of grueling exorcism rituals performed by 2 priests. These sessions were physically and mentally tortuous, with Annalise being subjected to restraints, being denied food, and enduring countless hours of psychological torment. Although there are also stories about her even outright denying food herself, so there was definitely stuff going on here within her brain that just wasn't being properly diagnosed. Throughout this chain of sad events, Annalise's health worsened. She became emaciated and weakened. The tragedy lies not only in this immense suffering Annalise endured, but also in the lack of proper intervention. The case raised important questions about the kind of intersection of religion and mental health. It really highlights the danger of neglecting evidence-based medical treatment in favor of superstition. At number 7 on the list, we have a bit of a different one. These are documents and possible images that have been successfully hidden in the Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly called the Vatican Secret Archive, which I like way better. I love the word secret is actually in the title. I didn't just add it for dramatic effect. They don't just hold archives here. These are secret archives. Anyway, this vast repository located within the walls of Vatican City houses an extensive collection of historical documents spanning centuries. While the term secret may imply sinister activities, the archive's purpose, as it's said, is primarily to preserve and protect sensitive or confidential material related to the Catholic Church. But there is definitely an allure about the unknown, and it's fueled various theories about the existence of possibly dark secrets concealed within those walls. Some speculate that the archive may contain controversial documents related to the church's historical controversies, like the Inquisition, the Crusades, and, as discussed earlier, some stuff about the role of the church during World War II, which came out fairly recently. Others propose that it holds hidden knowledge about the existence of maybe extraterrestrial life or ancient relics that challenge the established religious narratives, but hey, who knows? Next on the list, we have St. Joseph's Orphanage in Vermont. So we have a number of images from inside the walls of this notorious orphanage. They do have a certain old photograph creepiness about them, but for the most part, they're pretty innocuous, but it's the context behind these seemingly innocent photographs that makes them so uncomfortable to look at. Behind the doors of this orphanage were countless instances of mistreatment. Mistreatment is really putting it lightly. It was outright horrific what went on here, and when over 100 former residents of the orphanage came forward to make statements about how they had suffered as children in the facility, no charges were made, and the church had turned a blind eye to the cruelty the residents experienced at the hands of the nuns who ran it. The list of crimes committed are just too long to list, but it's so bad that there were actually children who lost their lives at this place, and not by accident. Some were pushed off boats. There's other stories about instances of being pushed out windows by nuns. It's infuriating hearing what went on here. This next image was an engraving by Bernard Picart, a draftsman, illustrator, and engraver from the early 18th century. This image here is his depiction of a torture chamber of the Spanish Inquisition. We see supposed heretics being suspended by ropes. One man has his feet being held to a fire. Picart created a body of work that challenged the religious norms of his time. His art often depicted religious subjects in unconventional ways that questioned the dogma upheld by the Catholic Church at the time. Picart's approach was met with disapproval a lot of the time and condemnation from the church, who considered his interpretations as blasphemous or heretical. But his willingness to depict religious figures and stories in a critical light led to his work being looked down upon and criticized by the church. Up next, we have this image. This is Dennis Rader, someone who upstanding members of the Christian faith would not be proud to learn that he is indeed a believer. Dennis Rader was a notorious American serial killer who terrorized the community of Wichita, Kansas from 1974 to 1991. What made Rader's case particularly chilling was the stark contrast between his heinous crimes and his seemingly normal everyday life. At the time of his arrest in 2005, it was revealed that Rader had served as a church leader, contributing to his image as this upstanding member of society. He was an active member of the Lutheran Church, holding positions such as president of the church council and leader of the Boy Scouts. Rader's role as a church leader and this image he upheld as being this dedicated member of his community only made it more of a shock when he was found out about his crimes. This guy, just an absolute monster. He did some incredibly twisted things that I just can't go into detail here, but just a reminder that no matter how decent people seem on the outside, there could be something much darker going on behind closed doors. Not trying to say you shouldn't trust anybody, just, keep your eyes peeled. Don't be too trusting. At number 3, we have the Salem UFO sighting. This photo may not look all that spectacular compared to some of the actual footage we've seen of possible UFOs today, but just keep in mind that this photo was taken in 1952. It wasn't doctored, and these mysterious glowing lights in the sky have never been explained. Photo was snapped by Coast Guard Officer Shell Alpert in Salem, Massachusetts. What makes this image really stand out is just how clear it is. It's not blurry, it's very obvious that there are 4 glowing discs hovering in the air. Now, in terms of why the church would have tried to hide an image like this, maybe people starting to believe in the presence of extraterrestrial life would have gone against what the Bible laid out. Really, I just put this one on here because it's an intriguing photograph. Number 2, let's change gears for a minute and take a look at a fairly recent image that made headlines when it was first shared on social media back in 2017. It didn't make headlines on major publications or anything, but it was all over the internet at the time. This image looks to be some sort of large winged thing. The picture was taken in Phoenix, Arizona by Richard Christensen, who's just as confused as everyone else as to what he captured on camera. Some said it resembled Mothman, but others said that this shadowy figure resembled an angel or even possibly a demon. Definitely looks more like a harbinger of doom to me. Of course, it could just be a trick of the camera or just an outright hoax, but I think it's a pretty eerie looking photo. And coming in at number 1 is William Tyndale. This image depicts the termination of William Tyndale, who was burned at the stake for doing what, you might ask? Turns out it's translating the Bible into English. As it turns out, what the Catholic Church was trying to hide here was actually the Bible itself. At least they wanted to keep it out of the hands of everyday people, anyway, which they believed would undermine their power. Tyndale believed that the Bible should be accessible to the common people in their own language, challenging the church's monopoly on biblical interpretation. His translation work, particularly the New Testament, faced opposition from religious authorities who sought to maintain control over religious teachings. The church considered Tyndale's translation as heretical, as it was in direct opposition to their authority, and his efforts were met with resistance, and he was ultimately arrested in 1535. In 1536, he was sentenced for heresy. He was sentenced and condemned to death by strangulation before being burned at the stake. We're starting things off with the Guildhall ghost. This photograph was taken in 1985, which is kind of surprising. It looks like something taken in 1925. What we're looking at here are members of the Coventry Freeman organization at St. Mary's Guildhall in Coventry, UK. They're bowing their heads in prayer. They're at a dinner service. In the top left-hand corner, though, we see a figure that seems to be wearing a long robe of some kind. They're not dressed like anyone else there. We're all mostly in suits and ties. Now, what makes this photo so creepy is that apparently nobody had seen this robed figure before until the film was developed and they looked at the image. Lord Mayor Walter Brandish who was at the dinner, claimed there was no one in that spot at the time and nobody who had been dressed like that at the entire event. You can also see that whoever or whatever this figure is, it's pretty tall, a head or two taller than most of the people in the photo. Only thing scarier than a ghost is a really tall ghost. Number 9, the devil portrait. This is a photo taken of an infamous image of the devil depicted in one of the most supposedly cursed books in history, the Codex Gigas, aka the Devil's Bible. Yeah. The Devil's Bible. Wonder why the church wouldn't want this book getting around. It's believed to have been written between 1204 and 1230, year-wise, not time of day, and changed hands several times before being housed in Sweden's National Library in 1768, where it still sits today. The book contains the Old and New Testament, as well as a plethora of other information of the time, but it's the magic spells that place the book in that cursed category, as well as the image of the devil, of course. And legend has it that this is not just any mere depiction of Satan. There's a dark tale behind it. It's said that the Codex Gigas was written by a monk who had broken his vows in some way and was being sentenced to death. There are many versions of the tale, but the point is he attempted to cut a deal. If he could write a book containing all the world's knowledge in a single night, his life would be spared. This is of course an incredibly unfair and impossible task unless you have some sort of deity helping you, right? And said monk was tempted by the devil himself and ended up selling his soul to him in order to help complete the book. And this demonic portrait is actually said to be Satan's own doing, his very signature, which he signed at the end. It's also, in some versions, the monk drew it as a tribute to him as well. Number 8, the White Lady of Worstead Church. Taken in August of 1975 by Peter Berthelot, who is visiting the Church of St. Mary's in North Norfolk with his family. It shows his wife Diane sitting on a church bench, head bowed as she prays. Now, Peter claimed that there was nobody sitting behind his wife when he snapped the picture, but once they were showing their pictures in a slideshow several months later with some friends, one of them chimed in asking, "Diane, who's that sitting behind you?" They looked closer at the photo and were like, "Yeah, who is that?" Diane was quoted saying, "When we saw the white figure sitting behind me on the projector screen, we just stood there with our mouths open." Looking closely at the ghostly figure, it almost looks like a woman wearing a bonnet. Peter and Diane took the photo back to the church, where the vicar told them the story of the White Lady, the ghost of a woman who appears to those who need healing. And apparently, at the time the picture was taken, Diane was having some health issues and was on antibiotics. Next up, we have the Sefton Church Ghost. In Maryside, England, just north of Liverpool, stands the Sefton Church, which finished construction in the 16th century. This image here was taken in 1999, and you can clearly see what looks to be a priest standing there. It's a cool photo, but looking at it without context, you wouldn't really think there's anything supernatural about it, if it weren't for the fact that the photographer, Brad Steiger, said that there was only one other person with him in the church at the time, another photographer who was standing right beside him. So who is the person or specter in this picture? Could it be the spirit of a former priest that still lingers within the walls of the church, or is it the same ghost that apparently haunts a pub next door called the Punch Bowl? Maybe it's both. I looked it up on Google Maps. The Punch Bowl is still there, literally right next door. It's an old-timey looking pub. It could be haunted for sure. At number 6, we have the Hospital Demon. This next image is incredibly mysterious, as there's not a lot of information on it. All we really know, or at least have been told, is that the image was supposedly snapped by a nurse at an unknown hospital in an unknown state. It was taken on a security camera and shows a patient lying in bed, and crouching on top of them is what looks to be some sort of demonic entity. It looks very much like your archetypal devil. You can see what looks like horns on its head. Its legs almost look goat-like with hooves. It's very creepy, even if it is a total hoax. Again, there's not much information on this image, but apparently the entity appeared briefly, and just a few hours after it showed up, the patient died. Is this the image of a genuine demonic entity waiting for the patient to pass before dragging them to hell? Is it just a hoax? Let us know your thoughts in the comments once again. And we're going back to the realm of cursed books now with the Grand Grimoire. This image here is one of the many illustrations associated with the Grand Grimoire. It's a textbook of sorts containing all sorts of black magic spells, believed to have been written in 1702. The book gives a detailed description on how to to summon a specific demon and the tools used in order to make it do your bidding. It also contains various spells used for winning the lottery, communicating with the dead, making yourself invisible, etc. I don't know. I gotta get my hands on this book. The book was readily available and became quite popular in France in the 19th century, and the church set out to vilify it, claiming this book and others like it to be sinister and dangerous, and their campaign was pretty successful. The book kind of died in popularity because, people don't want demons in their houses, I guess. Don't know why. At the number 4 spot, we have the ghost of St. Botolph's. Now, to the untrained eye, this image looks pretty innocuous, right? Just looks like a church. But take a close look at the top right-hand corner. We'll zoom in for you. Yeah, it seems to be a ghostly figure standing by the balcony. The photo was taken in 1982 by a man named Chris Brackley. Apparently, he hadn't seen anyone standing by the balcony when the photo was snapped. It wasn't until he developed the picture that this strange entity showed up. The picture was analyzed extensively, and it was determined that it wasn't the result of double exposure. Chris's equipment seemed to be operating fine too. A few years after the picture was taken, Chris was contacted by a builder who had done restoration work on a crypt at the church, and apparently the builder had knocked down a wall and accidentally disturbed a coffin. Inside of it was a woman whose face was eerily similar to the one captured in Chris's picture. This next image was posted to Reddit by Reddit user u/luciddream a few years back with the caption, "Real ghost or demon on the reflection of one of my friend's photos." Now, this is an image that would be really easy to fake, of course, but all the same, I hate this. This is a freaky picture and it makes me uncomfortable. It's hard to make out exactly what we're looking at here, but it's a picture taken of a mirror and you can see the reflection of a woman lying on the bed, and behind her is, I don't know what. I hope it's a dog, but it looks more like some sort of ghostly or demonic entity with a mane of messy black hair, very Grudge-esque. It's just your perfect example of a cursed image. There's just something off about it. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one, as there's not a lot of info on it, but it's eerie. It's eerie. And at number 2, we have the cave demon. There aren't a whole lot of supposedly real photos of demons out there, but this one has been floating around the internet since the late 90s. According to the legend, 2 boys from England had been exploring a cave in the United Arab Emirates. At one point, they heard a man scream. It was too dark for the boys to make out anything, so they pulled out their camera and snapped a picture with the flash on. For a moment, the cave lit up, and they saw this goblin-like creature clinging to a rock. The boys immediately turned around and ran out of the cave as fast as they could. And finally, at our number 1 spot, we have the Specter of Newby Church. This is a pretty famous image, said to be one of the most convincing ghostly photographs ever taken. This photo was snapped in 1963 by Reverend Kenneth F. Lord, great name, in the Church of Christ the Consoler, located on the grounds of Newby Hall in North Yorkshire, UK. The Reverend had been snapping pics of the church, and when the photos were developed, he noticed this mysterious, semi-translucent, cloaked figure standing at the church altar. He'd been completely alone in the church at the time. At least that's what he thought. First glance, it looks a bit like a plague doctor to me, almost. Skeptics took one look at this picture, though, and immediately called it a hoax, saying that the image was most likely the result of double exposure. It just looked too clear. The church was also not said to be haunted either. But the Reverend was adamant that what he took was real and sent the picture to experts to be examined, and it was determined at the time that the photo hadn't been tampered with at all. According to them, what was captured here was genuine. Whether it's an actual ghost or not, however, is still up in the air. This is also one that's really tall too. It's determined that whatever that thing was about 9 feet tall, so that is a very tall ghost. No thank you.
Coming in at number 10 is Church of Christ the Consoler. The Specter of Newby Church is the name given to a figure found in a photograph taken in the Church of Christ the Consoler on the grounds of Newby Hall in North Yorkshire, United Kingdom. The image was taken in 1963 by the Reverend Kenneth F. Lord. As the figure appears to resemble a human, much speculation has been had regarding what type of person might be in the image. Most speculation by believers has concluded that it resembles a 16th century monk with a white shroud over his face, possibly to mask leprosy or another disfigurement. Others believe it looks like a plague doctor from the 16th and 17th centuries. Now, initial claims suggested that the figure would measure up to be 9 feet tall, but its feet are not visible, so it could easily be standing on a box, giving the impression of height. Now, some people thought the photo was due to double exposure, but photographic experts have concluded that the image is not the result of double exposure. So what was it and why was it in the church? No one truly knows, but it's extremely frightening. Number 9. St. Andrew's on the Red. St. Andrew's on the Red Church, Manitoba holds the distinction of being the oldest stone church still operating in Western Canada. The church was built between 1845 and 1849, so I mean, no wonder it's haunted. One of the most well-known hauntings is a woman in white, who many claim died during the construction of the church and is now seen in the graveyard. People have also seen a man in black lurking in the graveyard, as well as a phantom car that suddenly appears and then disappears into the night. There's also a pair of red eyes that seem to float between the headstones. Yeah, that's a no for me. Now, these hauntings don't happen exclusively at nighttime, oh no. Even during the day, paranormal investigators have heard the sound of nails being driven into a coffin. Now, arguably the most unsettling story that comes out of St. Andrew's on the Red is that people often have nightmares after a paranormal encounter at the church. Those who have seen the red eyes, the woman in white, or the man in black all reported having vivid nightmares for days or even weeks after the encounter. The sound of chains rattling against the locked cemetery gates is one of the common themes in these nightmares. Now, after hearing all these stories, I'm still shocked that people go there. Number 8. Most Holy Trinity Church. Constructed between 1882 and 1885, Most Holy Trinity Church in Brooklyn, along with its adjoining school and rectory, is believed to be extremely haunted. In 1897, church sexton George Seltz had his life ended in the church, but whoever was responsible was never caught. Since then, a bloody handprint has occasionally appeared on the wall leading up to the bell tower. Casual. Now, the school was built in 1887 on the site of the church's graveyard. Now, although all the bodies were said to have been moved to a different location, ghostly activity makes some suspect that a few bodies remain beneath the school. And I mean, why would you ever think to build a school over a graveyard anyway? People have seen the lights in the gymnasium turn on and off by themselves for years, and heard footsteps when the gym is empty. The rectory is also the site of paranormal activity, and the bedroom formerly used by Monsignor Michael May, who died in 1895, is rarely used due to his ghost making noises in the room throughout the night. Number 7. St. Bartholomew's Church. The construction of St. Bartholomew the Great Church began in 1112. It said a monk and a Norman courier named Rahir were responsible for receiving the land and funds from King Henry I to build the church. A number of deaths and executions took place on the ground of the church. Now, today, several resident ghosts and unnamed entities reside within the church walls. The Duke of Argyll, the painter William Hogarth, and the apparition of a priest have been seen in the church. There's also a white mist that appears in the center aisle of St. Bart's, and some reports indicate the mist forms into the shape of a woman. Now, this positive energy is countered by a black mist that is also seen in the church and is thought to be residual negative energy of all the violence seen at St. Bart's. The church's most famous ghost is Rahir himself. The monk has been seen wandering the church, supposedly looking for his foot, which was allegedly stolen from his crypt centuries after his death. It's also said that his ghost appears on the first day of every July at 7 a.m. Number 6. St. Louis Cathedral. Located in the French Quarter of New Orleans, St. Louis Cathedral is the oldest cathedral in the United States still in use. The first version was constructed in 1718, and the final versions of the cathedral was completed in the 1850s. Now, due to its long history, St. Louis Cathedral has become home to a number of spirits. Now, one of the most famous ghosts to haunt the cathedral is Père Antoine, who served there as a priest from 1774 until his death in 1829. Père Antoine famously baptized Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans, and later performed the marriage to her first husband. Antoine's spirit has been seen walking through an alleyway outside the church named after him while quietly sitting and looking through the stained glass windows. The first recorded sighting of Antoine's ghost was in 1924. Other ghosts include Pierre Antoine's predecessor, Pierre Dagbert, the pirate Jean Lafitte, and even the infamous Delphine Lalaurie. Number 5. St. Mary's Catholic Church. St. Mary's Catholic Church was built in 1845 and is the oldest extant church in Nashville. Now there are 3 ghost rumors to haunt this church and its grounds. One story is about a priest who died during construction of the church. Another story claims that during a civil war, a Catholic priest serving as a chaplain for the Confederate Army was shot and died in the church. There is another rumor that the ghost is the spirit of Bishop Richard P.S. Mills, who died in 1860. He was buried in the church basement and supposedly still haunts his own stomping grounds. According to a story from 1937, a pounding at his bedroom door woke up a priest in the rectory, but he could find no one there. After he fell asleep, he was woken again, this time by a pounding on the headboard of his bed. There was no one in the room, so he blamed the old bishop. Number 4. St. Nicholas Church. Located in Kent, England, the village of Puckenley is considered one of the most haunted villages in England. Perhaps the most notably haunted site in St. Nicholas Church, which dates back to 1090 CE. Perhaps the most notably haunted site is St. Nicholas Church, which dates back to 1090 CE. A number of expansions and renovations have been made to the church over the years, and its long history lends itself to hauntings. Inside the church, an orb of light has been seen near the crypt of the Deering family who oversaw the village for centuries. Knocking has also been heard coming from the crypt, and some have witnessed the spirit known as the White Lady, who is thought to be one of the members of the Deering family buried there. Now outside the church, the apparition of the Red Lady has been seen in the churchyard along with a dog. During a paranormal investigation in the 1970s, it's believed those carrying out the investigation were visited by a ghost dog. Number 3. The First Church of Christ Scientist. In 1918, a young woman was seen pacing the steps of the First Church of Christ Scientist located in Louisville, Kentucky. More than a century later, it said her ghost is still seen pacing and sobbing during the night. Now this ghost is known as the Lady of the Stairs or Miss G. It's believed that Miss G was a member of the prominent Gathright family and that her parents attempted to marry her to a much older man after she graduated from high school. However, Miss G had already fallen in love with a young man who was fighting in World War I. After the war, the soldier, who is believed to be Herbert Fulton Dixon, returned to Louisville and the young couple planned to leave town and get married in Chicago. The night they were to leave, Miss G went on the steps of the First Church of the Christ Scientist where she and Dixon regularly met. Sadly, Dixon never showed up and a passerby saw a distressed Miss G pacing on the steps of the church. As it turned out, Dixon had come down with the Spanish flu and was unable to make it to the church, but the news never made it to Miss G. In a matter of days, both Dixon and Miss G had died from the flu, and Miss G's spirit has been seen on the church step ever since. Number 2. St. Mark's Episcopal Church. St. Mark's Episcopal Church is Wyoming's oldest church, having been built in 1868. Now during the construction of St. Mark's, 2 Swedish immigrants were hired to complete the masonry for the church's bell tower. The foundation for the bell tower goes 15 feet into the ground and stands 60 feet tall with 4-foot thick walls. Now as the 2 men worked, one fell to his death in the basement of the bell tower. The other man, fearing no one would believe that the fall was an accident, buried the man within the walls of the bell tower before fleeing the state. Yep, he thought that was the best solution. In the 1920s, the bell tower was finally completed, but construction workers said they heard a disembodied voice saying, "There is a body in the wall." Now the church rector believed that the bell tower was haunted and even had a special room built in the tower for the man's ghost. People have continued to report hearing the voices of a Swedish Manson in the years since the bell tower's completion. And no wonder. If I was that man, I would haunt the church too. And coming in at number 1 is St. Mary's Guide Hall. On January 22nd, 1985, the Coventry Freeman organization and their guests stood in prayer during a dinner event. All the guests were still, and as it was a dark room, the photographer probably thought it would be the perfect time to allow for a longer than usual exposure to get enough light into the picture, which makes sense. Now nothing was out of the ordinary at the time, but as people started to see the print of the picture, a mystery surfaced. Who was the robed figure standing near the end of one of the tables? No one had dressed up for the event, and no one remembers anyone standing there as they stood for prayer. Now the figure also seems to be taking part in the prayer, head slightly bowed, hands clasped in front. Coventry, Warwickshire is where the event was hosted, and it has many legends of ghosts and paranormal activity, but I wonder why this being decided to join in the prayer.
And we are starting off this list with the Ghost of Worstead Church. So back in August of 1975, there's this guy named Peter Botolph, just your average Joe, right? He's out with his family taking a stroll around the Church of St. Mary's in Norfolk. Nothing unusual, just a family day out. Peter's got his camera, it snaps a picture of his wife Diane sitting on a church bench, deep in prayer mode. Seems pretty ordinary. Peter, being the typical family man, claims there was absolutely nobody behind his wife when he took that picture. Fast forward a few months, they're hanging out with some friends, showing off their holiday slides, and boom, one of their friends points at a photo and asks, "Hey Diane, who's that sitting behind you?" Cue the collective confusion. Peter and Diane squint at the photo, and lo and behold, there's this white figure lurking behind Diane, almost like a woman in an old-fashioned bonnet. Now, they're not exactly the type to jump to ghostly conclusions, but when they saw that eerie figure on the projector screen, they were a little bit disturbed. They decide to investigate, take the photo back to the church. The local vicar, always up for a good ghost story, tells them about the legend of the White Lady. Apparently, she's this ghostly woman who pops up when people need healing. And at the time that photo was taken, Diane was dealing with some health problems and was on antibiotics. Coincidence? Maybe. Spooky? Definitely. At our number 9 spot, we have the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. So it's 1991. Judy Fells, a former member of the Ghost Research Society, decided to check out the infamous Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Illinois. Armed with a camera, she started snapping pictures, thinking she was alone in the graveyard. Little did she know, she wasn't. When the photos developed, Judy spotted something bizarre. There, on one of the gravestones, was a woman. Shown in this picture here. She appeared relaxed, slightly leaning forward as if gently rocking. Judy hadn't seen anyone while she was taking the pictures. Reports of this woman in white date back to the 70s. She's not your typical ghost either. Sometimes she's seen alone, just chilling on a tombstone. Other times she's holding something that many over the years have believed to be a baby. And it's not just in that one spot that her ghost is spotted. People claim to have seen her all around the graveyard. Next on the list is the photograph of the Wem ghost. So our story begins in the small town of Wem in England. In 1995, a terrible fire ravaged a building in town, destroying it completely. What caught everyone's attention, though, was a photo taken by local resident Tony O'Reilly during the fire. The picture captured a young girl standing amidst the flames, seemingly unharmed. The witnesses claimed there was no girl at the scene. No living girl, that is. Some said the ghostly figure looked a lot like a girl who died in a fire at the same spot in 1677. Her name was Jane Churn. According to legend, her ghost occasionally appeared in the town. Experts examined the photograph, attempting to debunk it, but there was no conclusive evidence. Tony O'Reilly, the man behind the lens, was said to be a straightforward and honest guy. He insisted that he hadn't noticed the ghostly figure when he took the photo and that he hadn't doctored it whatsoever. Number 7, the Brown Lady of Rynham Hall. Back in 1936, Captain Hubert C. Provand snapped a pic in Rynham Hall, Norfolk. It would go on to be one of the most well-known ghost photographs of all time. He happened to capture the ghostly figure of an entity known as the Brown Lady. According to the story, she's Lady Dorothy Walpole, a woman who got the short end of the stick back in the 18th century. She had an affair. Hubby found out, decided to lock her away in a dark corner of the mansion. She got hit with smallpox in 1726 and died a pretty miserable death. Visitors and staff at Rynham Hall have claimed to bump into this ghostly lady over the years. Some hear her footsteps like she's climbing the stairs. Others feel a sudden chill even when it's warm. And then there are those who swear they've seen her, the full-blown ghostly apparition, something like in this photograph here. Next, we have the famous Newby church ghost photo. Back in 1963, a reverend named Kenneth F. Lord was snapping pictures inside the Church of Christ the Consoler, located at Newby Hall in North Yorkshire, UK. And as he snapped away, nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first, but fast forward to when he develops the film, and there's this bizarre photo showing up. In the picture, clear as day, there's this semi-translucent, almost monk-like figure just hanging out at the church altar. Again, Reverend Lord claimed he was all by himself in the church when he took the shot. No one else was around, so who the heck was this phantom monk? Totally baffled, Reverend Lord decided to get some experts involved. They checked out the photo and swore up and down that it hadn't been messed with. As to who these experts were, that info's not really known. There's a good chance these supposed experts were of the self-proclaimed variety, but creepy picture regardless. And at our number 5 spot, we have the Sefton Church ghost photograph. Alright, so in Merseyside, England sits Sefton Church, just a hop and skip north of Liverpool. Now, back in 1999, a photographer named Brad Steiger was out there, camera in hand. There was another photographer right next to him, both of them doing their thing. While they were clicking away, Steiger managed to capture something strange. In one of his shots, clear as day once again, there's a figure that looks like a priest. Not weird to see a priest in a church, but again, there were apparently only 2 people in the church at the time, neither of which were dressed as priests. No fancy setups, no eerie lighting here, just a random day, 2 guys with cameras, and a photo of a phantom priest. There's also a pub next door to the church called the Punch Bowl, which is supposedly haunted. Maybe the ghostly father in this picture heads next door to have a couple sneaky drinks now and again. Probably what I'd do if I were a ghost. I imagine it would get pretty boring after a while. In fact, I think that's what creeps me out the most about the idea of ghosts. Not seeing one, but actually becoming one, like trapped in this eternal monotonous prison, spending your days repeating the last moments of your death, and then occasionally appearing ominously in people's amateur photographs. Like, yeah. Something to look forward to. Number 4, St. Botolph's Church Ghost. In 1982, a photographer, Chris Brackley, snapped a photo of St. Botolph's Church, not suspecting anything unusual, but when the film was developed, a mysterious figure appeared by the balcony. This one is a bit harder to spot, but just kind of take a close look in the top right-hand corner there. Brackley swore he hadn't seen anyone there when he took the shot. The photo underwent rigorous analysis, ruling out double exposure or equipment glitches. Brackley's gear was working fine, yet the unexplained figure was there. A few years passed and Brackley was then contacted by a builder who had worked on a crypt restoration at the same church. And during the restoration, a wall was knocked down, revealing a disturbed coffin, and inside was a woman whose face that the builder said eerily resembled the figure captured in Brackley's photo. Next up, we have the Coventry Specter. In 1985, there was this prayer meeting at St. Mary's Guildhall in Coventry, England. Members of the Coventry Freeman organization gathered for a prayer meeting. They were your typical group, all suited up and bowing their heads in prayer. Now, the odd part happened later when the photos from the meeting were developed. Among the familiar faces was an unfamiliar one, a figure distinctively dressed in a long robe. This wasn't your average attendee attire, everyone else was in modern suits and ties, but there was this mysterious robed figure in the top left-hand corner. No one in the group remembered anyone dressing like that during the meeting, and what really struck people was the height of this figure. They were noticeably tall, not the kind of person you'd easily overlook in a room. Alright, in second place we have a demon in the hospital. The story goes that a nurse working her shift at some unnamed hospital snapped this pic. She'd taken a picture of the security camera, and in the shot you get this patient chilling in bed. And, well, not really chilling, I'll get to that part later. But anyway, he's in bed, and right on top of them, there's something straight out of your worst nightmares. A demon, at least that's what it looks like. It's your classic devil type of vibe, horns on its head, legs that resemble something almost goat-like. The entity apparently popped up briefly, and what's even creepier is that just a few hours after it appeared, the patient in the bed passed away. Is this a genuine demon caught on camera? Grim Reaper's demonic cousin playing a visit, patiently awaiting to drag its next victim into the fiery depths? I don't know. Why don't you let us know in the comments. Finally, we have the Pine Hill Cemetery ghost. In Pine Hill Cemetery, a series of photographs captured by Tyler Karanasios brought attention to the possibility of paranormal activity in this quiet burial ground. What initially seemed like routine snapshots changed when he took a closer look at the pictures. As Karanasios enhanced the images, an eerie figure, almost like a woman wearing a veil, appeared in the background. He hadn't noticed anything when he was actually taking the pictures. It only showed up later. Pine Hill Cemetery in Hollis, New Hampshire has been rumored to be a hotspot for paranormal experiences. If you're thinking the figure is just a headstone, by the way, there was another photo taken during the day which shows that there is no headstone in that spot.